Hello! I've got another tutorial for you today, and this is a carry-on from my sponge roller setting tutorial that I posted last. The link for that is in the description box below, so if you want to watch that first and then come back to this one, go do that. This tutorial is going to all be about brushing out that set that I did. So it's about creating this slightly more curly, a little bit of a fluffy brush out, which isn't super technical like a page boy can be. I really like doing this brush out because it's quite easy, it's simple, and it's relatively quick. Once you get the hang of it, that is. It does rely on you having a really good set, not too fluffy, making sure that those ends are nice and smooth. So do watch my previous video if you need help with your setting. Please bear in mind that teaching a brush out to suit everyone's hair is quite difficult. The way that I'm going to show you is something that suits and works for my haircut, which is kind of this length, and it has shaping around the face and isn't too layered. But if you have longer hair, then hopefully you'll be able to pick up some tips and tricks from this tutorial and kind of adjust it to work with your hair. But don't be dismayed if it doesn't kind of work out perfectly the first time. You're just probably going to have to play around and figure out what works best for you. So this brush out is going to work no matter how you set your hair. I've used sponge rollers because that's my preferred method, but you could also hot tong. I do the same sort of brush out when I use hot rollers, so it's really just about the method and not necessarily the set. So I'm going to take out all my rollers, and when you take out your rollers, it's quite good to try and keep things in their tendrils. So sometimes that means like kind of doing that sort of motion so that you're not kind of messing it up too much. And I like to give them a little twist just so that they're nice and smooth again. If you're finding it quite difficult to remove your sponge rollers, or there's a lot of frizz on the ends, then that could be a sign that you've rolled it a little bit too tight. So check your tension as you're rolling into the sponge roller, because yeah, when it's too tight you end up with frizz, and it also makes it really difficult to get the rollers out. Okay, so it's very curly. But it's done a good set, there's not too much frizz. I've managed to get all the ends in nicely by the looks of things, so that's good. So this, because the style is a more curly kind of brush out as opposed to a page boy brush out, which I will try and do soon, I like to just use my fingers to kind of brush out and separate the curl. And what this does is kind of separate things and create a bit of body and volume without using a brush. So there's still definition in the curl. Sometimes if you use a brush you kind of are ending up with a more smoother look, but for this I want to really kind of keep that nice curly voluminous effect. Okay, so that's it there. As you can see, a bit more body, a bit more volume, and the shape is starting to kind of come into place. Now we're going to backcomb. Super duper important part of a brush out. It allows everything to kind of sit nicely together. Sometimes if your curls are sort of moving and sort of forming one big curl or something like that, then you might need to have more of a backcomb sort of in the root of your hair or even underneath the sections of the curl, just to keep everything from moving on its own accord. Most of it is going to be through this front area here where I'm going to have my swoop, and because the swoop is going to be going this side and sort of back a little bit, I like to do sections firstly sort of like this in a more vertical to my hairline. And I'm kind of going halfway between hairline to crown, I guess. It depends on how much hair you have. If you've got quite thick hair you won't need as much in this section. So I am literally just using my fine tooth comb and really going for it. It should stand up like this, and you really want the back combing to be coming right into the root. If you're having trouble at this point with the back combing actually kind of working or staying, give the section of hair a little bit of a spritz of hairspray, and that should help to just grit it up a little bit. If your hair is super clean, it is going to be a little bit harder to get that back combing in there. And I'm taking sections right down to sort of my recession here, so about to there. I'm going to flip it over, and because you can see now that I have sort of little sectioned off bits of backcombing, just due to me taking section by section, I am now just going to gently separate that in half the other way, so going horizontal to the hairline, and backcomb just to kind of really solidify, create quite the bird's nest, and make sure that everything, you know, there's no kind of gaps or random little sections. Okay, so that's that bit there, and now I'm going to go through and backcomb most of the root area. This is going to give body, it's going to make sure that we've got a lot of volume, and it also means that if you pin in a hair flower or something like that, it's going to stay in really well. So I am going to not backcomb as hard as this, just take a few sections and do a bit of light backcombing. So just enough for it to sort of stick out a little bit. Make sure you do the top of your head. So at this point you should be looking a little bit crazy, okay? There should be lots of volume, lots of backcombing, and it should be big. It was not going to stay like this, but yes, you do have to be a little bit cave woman-y before you can be a 50s bombshell. Now I am going to smooth things over. So with this, I like to use a Postiche brush, which is just a really good little brush for smoothing the top over without kind of actually brushing out the backcombing. And what I do kind of recommend is being very soft with kind of the way that you are brushing it. You are literally smoothing, you're not brushing. And one tip I find, it's sort of, you're not really like brushing with the actual bristles, you're kind of, I like to use the side of my brush, and I find that works really well. So I am going to start by smoothing this top section back, my front section, just gently kind of back and over, and a little bit of a spray of hairspray. I'm using the Davines Stronghold, and I'm brushing it back to that recession line because I like my swoop to kind of come down and sort of down the side of my face, like not kind of be too much on my forehead. So I'm brushing it right back. And then I'm going to place my fingertip into that recession, like that, and I'm going to use that as kind of my guide to smooth things over. So I'm just using my brush to actually brush through those ends. This swoop kind of style definitely works if you don't have hair that's too long. So as you can see, my hair is quite short. If it's down to here, you're not going to be able to get that sort of, that nice volume. It's going to be dragging this down. I kind of use my fingertips as well, just to kind of smooth and sculpt. This part is really just about playing around with it until it looks good. But as long as you have the backcombing in there, which is kind of the main part of what this looks like and the foundation of this style, then you should be able to kind of smooth things around and get something looking good. If you need a bit more volume in one spot, you can use the end of a tail comb to just kind of lift that up, like that. And once this part is starting to look good, I don't really finish it until I've brushed everything out. But I like to kind of do that first so that sort of things are out of the way. And now I like to smooth everything else over and start working the rest of the brush out, and I will finish off with this part here. So again, I'm just using my smoothing brush, and I'm just smoothing, a little bit of brushing, but mostly just trying to like smooth the top down without brushing out any of the back combing. I like to always have the side pinned behind my ear. I just find it stops the hair from kind of overwhelming my face too much. So I like to do that at this point so that it's kind of done and I can brush everything out around it. And I just pop a bobby pin in, super simple. I don't really worry about trying to hide the bobby pin. A lot of the time I have a hair flower over the top, so right now I'm just working on smoothing the top part, sort of from the top of the head to where the curls are starting. And I'm going to sort of spray as I go a little bit, just to try and help keep everything as smooth as possible. Just little spritzes of spray. And I'm basically stopping when I can feel my brush is hitting those curls, because I'm just working on this section now. Once that's feeling smooth, I am going to use lots of duckbill clips around where the curls are starting, and that's going to help give me a guide to moulding and sculpting the curls around it. For these to really be effective, try and make sure that it's going right into sort of your scalp. So it's really grabbing all of the hair, not just sitting on the top of the surface. And you want them to sort of overlap a little bit as well. Check with a mirror just to see that everything kind of looks like it's in the right place. And now you can also add in one to kind of keep the swoop sort of in the right place as well. So again, I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of mold the hair a little bit. I do find that easier sometimes than a brush, and having long nails helps as well. They kind of act as little combs. Alright, and now it's just about working this curl. So as you can see, there's a little bit of kind of fluffiness going on, so I'm again going to take my Postiche brush and just try and smooth that down. My hair definitely has a tendency to frizz out, just from going from black to copper, and also I find I get a lot of hairspray build up on my ends, and I try and get that out with a baking soda or something in my shampoo, but it doesn't always work as well. And at the moment I think I've got a bit of hairspray build up, and so it just makes things a little bit more frizzy. But I'm just sort of brushing, smoothing. You can use a bit of spray as you go. You can use your fingers to like kind of mold things and like twist things around into the right place. Also a pomade at this point can be really helpful. My favourites, I really like this Suavecita one, which does dry quite hard, I find. So sometimes if I'm wanting to make sure that I can still use, like get another couple of days out of my set, then I'll use something a bit softer. And my other favourite is the Kune Soft Wax. So it's literally just a soft wax. So you could buy any kind of soft wax, but what it does is it just doesn't go too hard. If you're feeling like you need a bit of volume sort of underneath or something, then just do a teeny tiny bit of back combing on the underneath section, and that's going to help give you that body. The purpose of this style brush out is for it to be curly, so a little bit of frizz or kind of fluffiness is inevitable, but I've been kind of liking a bit of fluff recently. When you look at old pictures of movie stars or just old pictures from the 40s and 50s of women who, like just regular women who weren't famous, you know, their hair did have fluff because, you know, they didn't always have a hairdresser to do their hair. So, you know, I kind of like having a little bit of fluff. It feels a little bit more authentic. Having it a more curly style and sort of more fluffy style also works really well on days when you know you're going to be maybe out and about in the weather, maybe it might be raining or it's really humid, and if you go out in that kind of weather with a beautiful page boy and it gets like blown about, then it's going to be really obvious when it's ruined. Whereas this sort of style, if it gets a bit windswept, it's probably not going to show it so much. Once things are starting to come into place, then you can begin to set it with the hairspray. If you have random curls like this, which just seem to stick out, then give it like a little bit of a twist, make sure it's sort of smooth, and you can use a little pin curl clip just to kind of pin it into place with the rest of the sort of group of hair, and then spray the crapola out of it. So as you can see, having kind of shorter hair and having a good vintage style haircut makes a big difference, because I could literally just sort of push everything into place. It bounces out really easily, it's not too long, so it does make a huge difference having a good haircut. If you really need to set this, like if you need this to stay for a whole day, if you're going to a wedding or something like that, then you can give it a spray, use the diffuser of your hairdryer, and on a low airflow setting but high heat, direct it up into that section of the hair and kind of move around. That is going to glue your hair together like crazy. It is really going to set that hairspray. It will not move, but be aware, like, you won't be able to brush your hair out. You will have to wash it out. I try and avoid that method at all costs, unless I really, really need it, because I just find it such a struggle to get all the hairspray out after that. Once it started to feel very crispy, and that is probably quite important. If you're not feeling that hairspray on your hair, you probably aren't using enough. But once it is crispy enough and you feel like there's enough hold, you can take out your clips. And the final thing that I like to do is use kind of a longer bobby pin, and just sort of underneath this sort of part of the swoop, I like to just try and hook a little bit of the hair and slide the bobby pin in to the hair on my hairline. And what that does is it just kind of keeps this part securely kind of on the rest of my hair, and it doesn't sort of, can't kind of lift up as much. So that's it there. There is definitely probably a little bit more fluff going on at the back, but I can't see that really, so I don't worry about it too much. So it's quite an easy brush out, it's not too technical. It's definitely my favourite and my go-to kind of brush out for just sort of you know, every day. Make sure you go and watch my sponge roller video as well, because there's some great tips for getting a smooth set, which is really important for a brush out. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you can put some of these tips and tricks into practice. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and my blog, and make sure you subscribe to my channel.